Hey, everybody. Welcome to Gross Anatomy, where we explore the sights, smells, and sounds of medicine, how it relates to movies, TV, pop culture, books, podcasts, and the world around us. And I am Dr. Jason Cohen, and I am joined by...
Lauren Taylor.
And here we are. Here we are today.
Yeah.
Welcome, welcome.
Well, Dr. Cohen, first things first, let's talk about your guys' trip. What happened?
Yeah. Guys' trip to Dominican Republic, where normally we do a whole ski trip, but this year one of my friends led a revolt and said, let's go Caribbean, let's go warm. 8 out of 12 of us, there were 12 of us, 8 out of 12 of us, believe it or not, are golfers. I do not get it. It's not my thing. The other 4 of us were non-golfers, although even one of the 4 of us is kind of a wannabe golfer, but they didn't allow him to join the group. But these are guys I've known since, some of them since nursery school. We were all camp. We all went to sleepaway camp together. That was a big East Coast Jewish thing. We'd spend 2 months together in a bunk. And believe it or not, it was never enough. Like, we were miserable the day we went home. Like, if we had been able to stay longer, we clearly would have. And we had a song, actually, at the end of every academic year. We would go around just going, camp, 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 camp. That was our song. We were so excited for camp. So it was great seeing them. And interestingly, the guy who joined our group the last, we were like 13. So we've really known each other for a while. So it was pretty remarkable.
That is remarkable, and not to like hate on women because I'm a woman, but I don't know, the 12 women, and I don't think we would miss each other after that trip. I think we'd be ready.
I want you to know, not to support women, since I am a girl dad. I have 3 daughters. My eldest daughter, shout out to you, Liat, is someone who kind of has a similar thing with her girls, has a big group that they, and it gives me a lot of, pride and nachas. And it's really great for me to see that she has of my 3 daughters, she's the one who has that same kind of girl group that my friends and I do. And it reminds me a lot of that, which is pretty cool.
That's very impressive. Yeah. I guess I don't have that. My brother has that a little bit more. So
yeah. And my sisters didn't have it really as much either. I think it's a lucky hit or miss thing. And I must say I got really lucky with my group of guys. Like, those guys are really my brothers who, we know a lot about each other, almost everything about each other. And we're just so close. And it's great.
Out of the 12, are you the only doctor?
Out of the 12, I'm the only doctor. That's a cool question. I love that. And I'm the only one kind of in healthcare or anything at all like that. So always, interestingly, when we're all hanging out together, there's always a point in our hangout, especially when we're away for a weekend, where everybody starts asking me questions, and then I start sharing fun, funky, gross anatomy stories. So it's always kind of fun. Yeah. And then I always have to discuss, Ozempic for sure these days. I have to talk about it because, the new trend is kind of microdosing Ozempic. I know that's not what this episode is about, but it definitely was a big conversation this weekend amongst all of us, and Ozempic and that.
No, that was going to be my next question. Like, what were their doctor questions? Do they ask you to like look at their mole, check for melanoma, those kind of things?
I've definitely, one of my friends actually is now taking, I have to follow up with him. His doctor found out that he has weak bones, that he has, I don't know if he has osteoporosis. I can't imagine that, because he's the most athletic, one of the most athletic of all of us, but he has weak bones, and his doctor put him on an injection, a daily injection every day to strengthen his bones. So he's someone who's not very good with needles and stuff. So he made me, like, for one reason, I'm like hanging out with another group of guys, and they're like, guys, he needs you. Go over there and talk to him. So I walk over. I have no idea what he wants. And he's like, watch me do my injection. So every day when he had to do his injection, he had to come sit next to me while he gave himself his little baby injection. And he's still not doing it right. And he's still very anxious, and he has to kind of lay down. But it's new for him. But it was pretty funny that I had to actually supervise his injection.
Yeah, that sounds kind of severe. But I mean, I guess the doctor knows what he's prescribing.
The fun thing for me is I said to him, do you have hyperparathyroid, which is one of the big surgeries that I like to do, because one of the common causes of weak bones is having hyperparathyroid. We have these four little glands in our neck, two on each side of the neck, and those guys control the calcium and make sure our calcium is in the right place in our body. And if it's not in the right place, possibly because of hyperparathyroid, which maybe he has this. So maybe I could operate on him, which would be even more fun. And I can make a yucky scar for him. No, I'm not going to make a yucky scar. He's one of my best friends. He's my brother.
But he's been tested, or now he's going to think about being
No,
tested?
I said to him, I said, hey, have you had your parathyroid hormone level checked? And he's like, let me check my doctor. So actually, I'm gonna have Liat remind me to reach out to him and say, hey, did you have your parathyroid check?
Nice. All right. Well, good. That might have been a good catch.
Hopefully, it's a curable, treatable thing as opposed to him having to continuously give himself injections for the rest of his life.
Right. All right. Well, I'm glad your guys' trip went well.
It was a good trip. Thanks, Lauren Taylor. It was a nice trip.
Well, so next week we have a guest. So this week I kind of wanted to get into the Academy Awards a little bit and talk about a movie that I think got snubbed. But first of all, I had this point. So you know who Conan O'Brien is?
Yes, Conan
The
O'Brien.
comedian.
Conan. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Well, he's going to be hosting, and he just got some buzz at Sundance for a movie he's in called "If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You," which is about a mother whose husband goes on a business trip, and she's left with her daughter who needs constant care and has a feeding tube. And the director writer wanted to like show a movie where the energy was actually on the mom, like the caregiver, instead of just the child, because she felt like she hadn't seen a movie like that. Which made me think of an episode that I watched recently. You probably saw it. I think it was maybe the last episode of The Pit, where a child comes in. She's taking care of her elderly mother, and she works from home. She doesn't have enough money to hire a private nurse, and the mother has schizophrenia, doesn't want to go live in a home, and she ends up leaving her at the hospital at the Pit because she's so exhausted. Have you ever seen anything like that before?
So I've a zillion thoughts come from that. One, just to back up to your movie, I tried to look for a trailer. I couldn't find a trailer of the movie. Were you able to find one?
So I think it was just like Sundance to see like who bought it. So I think someone just bought it. So maybe they didn't put out a trailer for it yet. I
Okay.
was just reading about it.
Okay. So I tried hunting for a trailer. I could not find a trailer. So for the life of me. Uh,
No, I'm a huge Conan O'Brien fan, so that's probably why that came up in my newsfeed.
Interesting. I could take him or leave him, but I like who's the woman in it? Olivia Wilde.
Rose Byrne.
Oh, Rose Byrne. Rose Byrne.
Yeah.
I like a lot, and she's pretty comedic. So, but yeah, no. So I couldn't find a trailer. But I also have to confess, I've only watched 3 episodes of The Pit, so I need to catch up.
Oh, so you haven't seen maybe the one I'm talking about?
No, I haven't, and especially I need to catch up because Ambar, who is Martinez, who's been one of our guests on the podcast, who's a nurse that I at the same hospital, who I actually never see at the hospital. I only know her through social media. Has been featured as a extra on the show, but I think she's gotten more as the episodes have passed. It looks like that she's had speaking parts and speaking roles. So I definitely need to watch more and give her a shout out and talk to her. And she's like a consultant on the show. So I know she's on it more. And I think I saw in some trailers that she's had some speaking parts, which is awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna look for her from
Yeah.
now on.
And so, no, I have not seen that episode. No.
Well, it's just really sad. This woman is just exhausted, and the elder mother is just telling her that she loves her so much, that she knows she's a lot, but like you can tell the daughter physically cannot do it anymore. Like she just cannot
She's
handle.
exhausted.
Yeah, and she ends up just leaving her mom at the hospital, and then so social services is called, and the social worker was saying this is not the first time she's seen this.
Wow.
Like she sees it more and more lately. And I feel like I don't know if that's because, the population's aging more, like we're older than we've ever been, or what's
Yeah.
happening.
You know, I haven't seen that specific scenario where someone brings their family member and deliberately doesn't take them home like that. But it's not uncommon that a patient comes into the hospital and the family member says, I think it's time to get my loved one in a skilled nursing facility, or can we arrange for round the clock help or visiting nurse. That I've seen patients, based on both family and the patient themselves saying, yeah, I don't feel comfortable going home right now. I think I need to go to a rehab center or a skilled nursing facility or something like that. So that's actually not that uncommon, especially for surgery. After a patient's been in the hospital for a long time, gets debilitated. So that I've definitely seen a ton of, and often we're there to help get the patient the referral and get placed, and that sometimes could take days to occasionally a week or so. In the olden days it definitely took longer. I think these days there's such a push with the hospital being full to really work to get that patient placed in a facility as quickly as possible to get that bed freed up to someone who is acutely ill.
Right. So, and then in the pit, I know you noticed like that he works with like the social worker a lot for a lot of the cases that come in.
Yeah.
You ever had to personally call a social worker? I mean, and that wouldn't be anything you do as a surgeon now, but maybe
No,
before.
we definitely work with social workers. This more senior I get, the less of that, fortunately or unfortunately, I have to do. But I definitely know the social workers on the floor, and there's often family dynamics or just planning stuff. So there's often, the social worker, just like in the pit, the social worker is very involved these days. It's really, at least the hospital where I am, they're just more comprehensive, thinking about all aspects of the care pretty much from the beginning. So, what actually happens is the social worker kind of gets a list of all the patients on their floor and kind of runs through who may need help, who may need services. And they'll often reach out to the treating team and say, hey, I'm going to talk to this patient. Do you think they, da da da, I'm going to set up XYZ. So it's much more involved. But in the olden days when I was doing my residency, we were dealing with the social workers all the time, and back at Kings County Hospital in Brooklyn, placement was a major issue and a major thing, and then there were a lot of family dynamics and things that we dealt with. So we definitely dealt with social workers all the time.
Okay, so that's nothing new. Okay.
No, nothing new. But these days it's more preemptive. The social workers being involved. In the olden days, it was kind of more reactive. But these days, social workers way more involved right from the beginning. And I think they probably review. It wouldn't surprise me if they review every patient on in the hospital, saying, okay, this one we need to deal with. And then another thing that happens at a lot of hospitals, especially where I am, is they have like a morning, not just the rounds with the nurses, but I think they go over kind of with social worker, with case management, with maybe even physical therapy. And they kind of go through like as a whole team, and with one doctor kind of representing the floor, kind of they come up with a plan for each patient to make sure that they could get them out of there, and not just get out of the hospital, but get out of the hospital to try to avoid coming back into the hospital, and make sure their post hospital care is taken care of.
All right. So a movie I think that didn't make the list for documentary was a movie that I watched recently. I think you watched it last year, maybe when it first came out. It came out in I think the end of 2024.
No, I watched it on a plane, believe it or not. I watched that on a plane within the last 6 months, I think.
Okay. The documentary we're talking about is Superman, the Christopher Reeve story.
Yeah, yeah, I watched it.
Um, yeah. And it's about his life and everything he's been through. What were your thoughts on the movie?
Well, you know what I think? I think part of the problem with it is the kids today probably don't even know who Christopher Reeves was. So my guess is that's probably why it wasn't nominated for an Oscar. I think it's not necessarily so relevant. Like had it been more recent, or had he been a more recent Superman, I think it probably would have gotten an Oscar nod. But I think because unfortunately, when did he die? He's been gone a
So
while.
yeah, he died in 2004. So yeah,
Yeah.
I guess it was basically like the 20 years since his death, and his kids talked about him and how, he survived his injury and paralysis and everything that he did for the disabled community. So that's what the documentary is about.
Yeah. And he's the OG Superman. He's the original movie Superman. And it was, I thought it was a phenomenal movie, and I thought his life was so remarkable. I love the fact that he and Robin Williams, who a lot of people don't know, kids today may not, although probably they do from his comedic movies, but he and Robin Williams were like best friends, and they both were serious acting students at Juilliard, and they talked about that a little bit. And they were so different, Christopher Reeves, this serious actor who became Superman, and Robin Williams, who was, you know, this nutty, Mrs. Doubtfire, or Hook from Peter Pan, or just Mork and Ork from Mork and Mindy, and a million other things. But uh, I thought that was pretty. I would have loved to have seen even more of that, their friendship.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, I knew they were friends. I didn't realize how close they were. Like Robin Williams called him like his brother, basically, and then Glenn Close, who was in the documentary, went as far to say she thinks Robin Williams would still be alive if Christopher Reeves was still alive. And I was like, oh,
Yeah, yeah, it was really, really nuts. And the other thing I hadn't realized, or maybe I had, was how much of an active outdoorsman, seizing life, Christopher Reeves was. And that's what they showed you in the beginning. He was a boater, he was a horse guy, he flew planes, and he was Superman, which is crazy.
mm-hmm. No, I didn't realize he did all of that either. And I mean, I definitely cried.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and then all the stuff that his wife did. So they started the foundation. It was called the Christopher Reeve Foundation. And then I knew his wife died, but I didn't realize how closely she died. She died like less 18 months after him.
well, of lung
So
cancer, right?
yes, and she never smoked a day in her life.
Yeah, crazy. um Really, really crazy. Yeah, she I think she's the reason why he lived as long as he did after his injury. Probably. I think for many, mentally, and the fact that she took care of him. But I think she gave him the will to live. And in fact, they said that in the movie. Like he was ready to die and give up, and she said, "Oh no, this, you're not leaving," kind of, right. What was
Yeah,
it?
she was like, "You're still you," and
Yeah,
yeah, she kind of gave him the courage. Yeah, that's what he said.
yeah. I still remember when it happened. I still remember hearing about it, and back then he was the original Superman. So I mean, the world was devastated. It's kind of like Kennedy getting shot, kind of thing. He was Superman, and all of a sudden, Superman was maybe going to die and then paralyzed, which was, it was a big deal back then. Do you remember? You probably don't remember.
No, I don't, and I didn't even know. I mean, I knew who he was, but like all the movies that he showed, I've never seen before. So now
Yeah,
I'm going to probably go back and watch some of those. But yeah, I didn't realize what a big deal it was, just like you
yeah,
said.
yeah,
But I do remember him being a disability advocate, and yeah, it's because of what a big deal it was that
yeah.
he put that spotlight on it.
The other amazing thing is the level of his injury was a really high cervical paralysis. So he had no arm, no hand motion, and he actually needed a breathing machine to breathe. Like he couldn't even survive without being on oxygen. That's how high of a cervical injury. So for a lot of people, that probably would have been a fatal injury, or something that may have caused someone to die early on from complications. But because he had such great care, um, he was able to live for as long as he did. But that's a really high, dangerous injury. I mean, he couldn't move anything. He could only move his face.
Right. But he's still, yeah, he still had hope that, with research, science, one day he would be
Yeah,
able to move again.
yeah. And the amazing thing is we've had my friend Alan Brown on the podcast. Um, Alan Brown, who actually is one of the group of my guys that I grew up with, who maybe was going to actually even come on this trip with us, except for the fact that he's a quadriplegic as well, and was worried that that the accommodations weren't going to be able to accommodate him and all that. So we were trying to get him to be able to come with us, but we weren't able to make it happen. But um, he very early, I think he was 20 or 21 when he was paralyzed, and he's also a pretty high paralysis, but he has arm and some hand function, which gives him, definitely better mobility and certainly better quality of life than Christopher Reeves had, but still amazing challenge. And he's another amazing advocate. And I'm getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. He himself, when he was paralyzed, um, started his own foundation, which was called the Alan T. Brown Foundation to Cure Paralysis. And this was way years before Christopher Reeves was paralyzed. And then, the good and the bad is that Christopher Reeves got paralyzed, and that really helped. Unfortunately, with a lot of illnesses and a lot of diseases, until there's some big advocate or celebrity or wealthy person attached to that illness or disability, there's not going to be attention. There's not going to be research. There's not going to be dollars. There's not going to be laws in place. So Christopher Reeves luckily became this huge advocate and really helped people with all disabilities, but certainly people with paralysis, get more attention, get more funding, get more research, get more care, get more access to care. And Alan, they got to know each other, I believe, and help each other out. And eventually, Alan merged his foundation, because Alan has done a lot of amazing things too with advocacy, and he merged his foundation into the Christopher Reeves Foundation, and ultimately is now someone, in the higher ups of helping run the Christopher Reeves Foundation, which is pretty amazing.
It is amazing. And you don't know this, but I spoke with Alan today on the phone,
No
and he's
way.
so generous with his time, and he answered some questions for me. Yes, he is currently the director of partner engagement at the Christopher Reeves Foundation. And
That's
he wanted to
amazing.
make it clear that the foundation did not do this documentary. It was like the kid's baby was his words. It was, his three children that helped bring this documentary about, and it was about their life and their story. But part of their story is that they do work for the foundation, and
Right.
they continue their father and stepmother's work.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. And years ago, I don't know if I think they were honoring Alan, or Alan was just very involved in the Christopher Reeves. So all of us, I flew to New York, and we all went to Christopher Reeves Foundation fundraiser, and we were all there together years ago. A lot of my guys who were on this guys trip, and Alan, because that's what he does now. He's very involved, very active with that foundation. I must tell you, one of the negative, I think the real reason why the movie isn't nominated for an Oscar, and one of the things I was hoping for, was I was hoping to see Alan in the movie, and they did not put Alan in the movie, and I think that is why it's not nominated for an Oscar. If it were up to me, if Alan were in it, I think for sure there would have been an Oscar nom.
I was hoping to see him too. He's adorable and he's very nice. He said he was at the premiere. They premiered at MoMA actually,
Yeah,
and Susan Sarandon, that was one of the celebrities there. But then it actually did another premiere at Warner Brothers Studios, and he said a bunch of athletes came. I'm not sure which ones, but so he was at both of those premieres, which was
yeah.
cool.
What's pretty cool is Alan's always was always kind of like Christopher Reeves, just sees life by whatever it has, and has always been athletic. And so one of the things Alan's done is he helps. He's in touch with a lot of athletes, so a lot of athletes are involved, and help support all these the Alan Brown Foundation, and then the Christopher Reeves Foundation, and and one thing amazing about Alan, and I don't know if Christopher Reeves did it, is someone will call Alan and say, "Hey, this kid or this athlete just had a spinal injury. Are you available?" And he'll contact the person, the family, and he'll just help them kind of get back, and get back on track, and help them navigate, this new life.
Right. And that's something that the foundation does too. So you can go to the Christopher Reeve Foundation. They have all those resources and people that you can contact. So if anyone is looking for someone or more information,
Yeah.
that's what he said. That's how you can get involved. If you want to be a disability advocate, go there.
Interesting fun fact is Alan's brother, one of his brothers, is a lawyer, and what he's made his whole, I think he's made his whole legal career is about helping people with disabilities, which is pretty cool. Um, so that his brother Daniel does a lot of that work, and which is pretty amazing. I don't know what else did you talk to Alan about? Anything else?
So yeah, so well, and we did an interview with him that people should listen to. It's fantastic about Dr. Cohen and Alan's friendship, and how he got his injury, and he's had his injury. He's been dealing with this for 36 years,
Yeah,
and he's continued to have hope, and he's continued. He said Christopher Reeve, is the reason the research is where it is, and he said that he believes Chris is still looking down on him in the foundation, and that it's fitting that the documentary came out at this time because of where the research is right now.
yeah,
So when we talked to him it was July 2001, he said that he was going to be a part of a clinical trial. And apparently this clinical trial has now just gotten FDA approval. Did he talk to you about this? Do you know? I
yeah,
mean, it'd be better to talk about it than I am, but it's like with Onward Medical,
yeah. What did he tell you?
the stimulation part. Like I don't know how it works, but that it's a non-invasive spinal cord stimulation therapy, and he was one of 65 patients that did the clinical trial.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't know exactly what it was stimulating. If it was just specifically on the spinal cord. It was all external, so nothing like no implantable leads or anything like that. And and they would have him, try to move his foot, try to move his hand. And the amazing thing is he got some motion. Alan, this we're talking about. Alan has had some mild success with moving his kind of being able to move his hand a little bit, even move his foot a little bit. Not enough yet, I don't think, but I think it's amazing breakthroughs and early findings. What else did Alan tell you about it?
No, he said so. His trial was 2 months, and he did like it helped lower his blood pressure. He did get like some stimulation, like
Yeah,
helps your. He basically described it as like helping your body to wake up,
yeah, yeah,
um, which is amazing. And that now that it's FDA approved, he could do it every day.
yeah.
So
Is
I
he
guess you
doing it?
could,
Is he plan? I haven't asked him.
yeah,
Like,
he's planning on it. So I'm not sure when it's gonna roll out
yeah,
or how it
yeah.
works.
It's pretty cool, and hopefully, with the way technology is growing exponentially, hopefully in our lifetime, we'll see more and more, and you know, it's amazing even now. Like, if God forbid someone has a spinal injury, if they're treated early, we have so much more to offer that person than compared to, unfortunately, when it happened to Alan. So, um, still, it's amazing, and the good and the bad is that it happened to Christopher Reeves, and that he became such a big advocate, and the movie I thought was really really amazing.
Yes, I would encourage people to watch that documentary.
Yes,
And he
great.
said it did. I mean, he was disappointed it wasn't nominated for an Academy Award, but that it did win some awards. So that's nice. And he said that young people, like you said, didn't know who Christopher Reeve was, but
Yeah,
now, like I guess on the foundation social media page, more people are reaching out because they found out about him because of this documentary.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
on Max. Anyone can watch it.
yeah.
That has.
And it's funny watching, thinking of the way superhero movies are today compared to, that was a breakthrough movie, the original Superman, and it was super cheesy even too. Interesting fun fact is Marlon Brando plays his father in the original Superman. Did you know that, Lauren?
I learned that in the documentary, but I'm sure
Yeah.
if young people are listening, they have no idea who Martha
Yeah,
Brando
nobody
is.
knows Marlon Brando, the Godfather, or
I mean, I love him. Yes, I know who you're talking about.
exactly. But Marlon Brando played his, and then Gene Hackman, who also probably nobody knows, played one of the villains in one of the Superman with Christopher Reeves. I don't remember which one it was.
I don't know, but I know I like Gene Hackman too.
Yeah, there you go. Classic actors. Marlon Brando is one of the best.
But so I had like two questions from the documentary for a doctor, being you. Christopher Reeve talked about pop off when a hose comes off a ventilator, and it can last a couple of minutes, but they're very, very anxious minutes. Is
Yeah.
that something that can still happen?
Yeah, the ventilator, the way ventilators work is they're attached to someone who's on a chronic ventilator. It's basically a breathing machine. So during general anesthesia, everybody's on a ventilator. If you're having general anesthesia, you're on a breathing machine, and that tube goes down your throat into your trachea, into your windpipe, and attached to that tube, then we put this plastic tubing that's attached to the machine to breathe for you while you're under general anesthesia. So anyone who's uh, either in an intensive care unit, sedated so much that they're totally out of it, or if you can't breathe and you need like Christopher Reeves, his paralysis was so high he couldn't breathe without a ventilator. So you're on this breathing machine. If you're going to be on a breathing machine for a long time, even sometimes long time can mean more than several weeks, it's easier to get the tube out of your mouth and to make a hole in your neck, in your windpipe there, in your trachea, and put the breathing tube through there so that you could mouth words, so that you could potentially talk. So plus it's more comfortable not having it go down your throat where your gag reflex is. So it's so much easier, more comfortable, easier to take care of to have the tube, the breathing tube, a tracheostomy tube is what it's called, coming out your windpipe in the middle of the neck. So, but that little tube is just a little tube that's stuck there, and then the breathing machine is hooked up. And it's just two pieces of plastic tubing that you hook up. And you could change the outer tubing and whatnot. So it's not uncommon, even in patients in the intensive care unit, for that tubing, for whatever. If a patient's coughing, sometimes that coughing, that pressure from a cough could pop it off if it's not on enough, or if the patient's moved, or who knows what. It's a pretty common thing, but it's got to, for someone who's awake and needs that breathing machine to breathe, that has to be one of the most scary things in the world, because you cannot breathe if that tubing is not attached to your windpipe. So even a minute, it has to be incredibly, because could you imagine not breathing for a minute? So he's basically suffocating for, which is crazy scary. But believe it or not, it's not that uncommon.
Ah, that's interesting. I wondered about that. And then he also said something about, or someone, it might have been the doctor in that show, but he said nerves can find new pathways. I don't really understand that.
Yeah, so it's not so much that nerves could find, maybe they can, and I'm definitely not a nerve guy and don't know all about that. But sometimes, an injury, any kind of injury, could take up to a year to heal. So it's not uncommon that things could heal. But then nerves are basically like what's a good way to think about nerves? They're basically like strings, strings, and they're all kind of laying next, like strings, like a hair, like hair, and it's all laying next to each other. All the hairs are laying next to each other, and maybe some are, even though there might be a gap in between some of the hairs here, but they're overlapping, and who knows? Maybe one will somehow connect to another one, and maybe that's what it means. And certainly today, with some of the technology and surgical procedures, there's actually some surgeons now doing kind of nerve transplants, or taking a nerve that's not so important for one part of the body and maybe rewiring it and bringing it to attach somewhere else and getting some function and things like that, which is pretty remarkable. There's a surgeon I work with here who's doing pretty amazing, groundbreaking stuff.
Wow, maybe we should have him on the show one day.
Yeah, we definitely should.
Okay,
Yeah,
then that's what we're gonna do.
there we go.
So yeah, that was cool. It was great to talk to Alan. It was a quick conversation, but he's so busy. He's got some hockey thing he's doing soon. The Christopher Reeves Foundation and Dana Reeves Foundation does a lot of cool stuff with athletics for people with disabilities. So he was going to some hockey thing.
Alan, well, hockey was always our sport growing up. So Alan was a hockey player and hockey fan, and he was an athlete and still is an athlete. He swims. I remember he did the marathon after he got better, after he was paralyzed, in New York City Marathon. There's a great iconic photo of him. I actually did a painting of it he has in his house. He's just a great guy.
He is. All right. So we recommend seeing that documentary. And now I want to move on to something I really wanted to ask you. Did you finish The Penguin?
No, just
Oh my
the,
goodness, Dr.
well,
Coleman.
that's the problem. There's so much. There's overload of so much stuff. Like we need to go back to like the 70s when there was not a lot of stuff out there and you could watch all the things. There's so much stuff. We're liking the Penguin a lot, but you know what we got sidetracked with now?
No, but I need to know because I need a show. What is it?
Severance. We got sidetracked with Severance. Have you seen that yet?
I did see the first season, so we're waiting for the second season to be complete.
Uh,
'Cause I like to binge. I'm not a like. I don't like to wait every week.
we normally do too, but there's just like for whatever reason we keep finding something else. So we kind of started down the Severance path, and now we're doing that. So now we have these three shows: The Pit, Severance, and The Penguin. That were all kind of like the same number of episodes in. And maybe tonight we'll watch something. We'll see what it's all up to the boss. Whatever the master injector says, that'll be what we watch. So I'll have to see what the master injector says tonight. What we're gonna watch.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, shout out Master Injector. What are we watching tonight? What else, everybody?
I don't know. Write in. Let us know your thoughts.
Give us your thoughts, give us recs, give us ideas. But otherwise, thank you all for joining us at Gross Anatomy. And we appreciate everything and all of your comments and questions on social media. Continue to find us at Gross Anatomy Podcast on Instagram and TikTok. You won't find me dancing. Maybe you'll find Lauren dancing. Who knows?
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.